And let's say, I will say this, that many people in the party are not aware of their own racism. Let's go back to an early part of this conversation where you said to me, are you concerned about the color in the White House? Why would you ask me that question?
Because you speak about black issues.
No, but why would you ask me? But let's get to really the nucleus of it.
Imagine watching a live TV interview where Candace Owens, known for her fearless conservative stance, takes on a woke journalist and leaves them stumbling. From the very start, Owens called out the obsession with race, refusing to be boxed into the usual identity politics trap. She even turned the tables, calling out the left's hypocrisy and exposing the empty promises of woke culture. By the end, it was clear who had the upper hand. So here's the question. When it comes to these debates, are woke narratives losing their grip?
Bother you that there's no prominent African Americans in the White House?
We have to stop believing in this illusion that because somebody is black, they represent my interests. We learned that lesson via Barack Obama. I mean, he was in the White House for 8 years and didn't do much for the black community. So I'm not interested in the color of people's skin. So I'm interested in what they do.
Yeah.
The interview started off with Crystal Ball diving into a discussion about an event Candace Owens had organized, aimed at bringing together young black conservatives in Washington, D.C. Right away, Ball tried to steer the conversation into racial territory, implying that Owens' event had a strong racial focus. But Owens wasn't going to let that slide. She immediately called out the angle, questioning why everything had to be filtered through the lens of race as if there were no other aspects to discuss. Owens pointed to the media's relentless fixation on identity politics, suggesting that it's become a crutch for avoiding deeper, more meaningful topics. Rather than falling into that familiar trap, Owens turned the tables on Ball. She made it clear that race should not be the centerpiece of every conversation, especially when it comes to politics and leadership. Owens argued that reducing individuals to their skin color not only oversimplifies the issues, but also detracts from what truly matters: policies, ideas, and actions. She questioned why the media continues to push narratives that pigeonhole people based on race, when, in her view, this just keeps everyone stuck in outdated ways of thinking.
I'm really interested in your perspective here. Yeah. So to you having, like, you don't look at, it is an administration that has more white men than past administrations have had. Yeah, but that doesn't bother you. You don't think that diversity is important?
No, not at all. I think that we have to stop believing that diversity is the color of people's skin, because
this firm pushback set the tone for the entire debate. Owens made it clear from the beginning that she wasn't going to engage in a race-centric discussion just for the sake of appeasing media expectations. Instead, she emphasized that real progress requires us to look beyond superficial labels and focus on substantial issues. It was classic Candace Owens, as she skillfully rejected the typical one-sided format and signaled that she was ready for a much more nuanced conversation than what Ball had in mind. When Ball brought up the supposed lack of diversity in the Trump administration, Owens saw it as yet another attempt to force the conversation back to race. Owens didn't skip a beat and countered by saying that diversity isn't about skin color, but diversity of thought. According to her, it's not enough to fill positions based on race. What truly matters is what people bring to the table.
If you have, like, the Black Caucus, for example, which didn't stand up and applaud when Trump announced that we had the lowest ever unemployment in the black community, that's concerning to me. So a big part of the conversation that we open is in making people understand that that's an illusion that the left has sold, that somehow because somebody matches my skin color, because somebody matches my gender.
She called out liberals for pushing superficial diversity that's all about optics rather than accomplishments. To drive her point home, Owens mentioned how the Black Caucus didn't applaud when Trump announced record-low black unemployment, a moment she found telling. This, she argued, showed that even those who share racial backgrounds don't necessarily represent each other's interests. Owens firmly believes that true diversity should go beyond surface-level attributes and focus on meaningful policies that actually make a difference.
Just one more here, because I wanted to get to know you before you came on. Yeah. And I'm really interested in your perspective because I think you're a fascinating person.
Thank you.
There was another tweet that said, the Democratic Party is comprised of racist white liberals.
That is correct.
Am I a racist white liberal?
Well, let's go back and let's say, I will say this, that many people in the party are not aware of their own racism. Let's go back to an early part of this conversation where you said to me, are you concerned about the color in the White House? Why would you ask me that question?
Candace Owens didn't hold back when she tackled the left's obsession with identity politics, making it clear that race and gender alone don't determine a person's interests or values. She used Barack Obama's presidency as a prime example, arguing that despite his historic role as the first black president, he ultimately did little to advance the black community during his 2 terms in office. Owens argued that merely sharing a racial identity doesn't automatically translate into shared interests or meaningful representation, a perspective she believes exposes a fundamental flaw in identity politics. According to Owens, the left uses these superficial markers, race and gender, to manipulate public opinion, fostering a sense of tribalism that encourages people to stick together based on appearances rather than ideas. This approach, she claimed, keeps people locked in a cycle where they feel they must support leaders who look like them, regardless of whether these leaders actually advocate for their interests. Owens challenged this as a false narrative pushed by liberals to secure votes and retain power while failing to deliver real change.
That question of who I admire, I said Kanye West because he's always been, long before Donald Trump came down the escalator, it was Kanye West that's been the battering ram against political correctness. And I knew that someone with his personality wasn't going to be able to exist comfortably on the left anymore because we are now being told what to think, how we have to think, who we have to love, who we have to hate. And that's not comfortable for anybody that's an artist. And their stranglehold on culture is really what Kanye is sort of taking a stab at now.
For Owens, real representation should be rooted in policies and actions that uplift everyone, regardless of skin color. She questioned why society continues to focus so much on what leaders look like rather than what they actually accomplish. In her view, identity politics only serves to divide people, encouraging them to prioritize surface-level traits over substantive issues. Owens believes that focusing on genuine achievements rather than racial or gender identity is the only way to move forward and foster unity. By challenging these ideas, Owens offered a critique of liberalism that questions the true intentions behind its emphasis on identity, suggesting it's more about control than empowerment.
I want to be clear, based off of my conversations with him, he's not a Republican, and I think that that's an important thing to distinguish and to make clear, distinction to make, because in many ways I've said I'm not a Republican either, but he is a free thinker and he values ideas. And unfortunately, if you believe in the ability to think and to have a dialogue, that is a position that's on the right today.
Crystal Ball tried to put Owens on the spot by bringing up Kanye West's support for conservative ideas, a move that Ball seemed to think would be controversial. But Owens was more than ready. She defended Kanye as a free thinker, someone unafraid to challenge liberal control over culture and political correctness. Owens highlighted that Kanye as an artist couldn't stand being told what to think or believe. According to Owens, the left's reaction to Kanye is proof of how restrictive woke culture can be. It simply doesn't allow for differing viewpoints, especially not from black public figures. She argued that liberals like to box people in, but Kanye represents what happens when someone breaks free from those limits. Owens used this moment to emphasize that woke culture isn't as inclusive as it claims to be. Instead, it enforces conformity and punishes those who stray from its narrative.
And we are on TV, so you can run.
Me racist.
Okay, so I did not call you a racist. You're using the typical leftist tactic of trying to make yourself a victim.
Here's what I want to say.
Which is not something that I would accept.
Hold on.
No, but we're actually well beyond time.
Well, she's making herself a victim and pretending that I came here and called her a racist. So this is a typical leftist tactic.
Crystal Ball brought up some of Candace Owens' tweets on political violence, likely hoping to get her on the defensive. But Owens didn't miss a beat. She fired back by pointing out what she sees as a pattern of intimidation and fear tactics on the left. Owens argued that liberals often ignore or even excuse violent actions when it suits their agenda. She referenced cases where left-leaning groups have gotten aggressive, yet they rarely face the same scrutiny as conservatives do. Owens called the selective outrage a classic double standard, where liberals are quick to point fingers but slow to hold their own accountable. She framed this as part of a broader hypocrisy where the left claims to stand for peace and tolerance but overlooks their own side's actions. To Owens, this is just another example of how the woke agenda twists narratives to suit its needs.
That we not demonize our opponents.
And I think it's important that you not demonize my president.
And one thing that I try very hard to do is to criticize the policies and criticize people who are in positions of
power. And I'm not sure how you were doing that by pointing out the color in the administration.
But not to criticize the people who support the president.
You literally spoke
That's
about
something I
skin
try
color,
very hard to do.
But you're not doing a very good job of it.
And I think it's really important.
As the interview continued, Ball kept circling back to race, but Owens saw right through it. She was quick to call out what she considers the woke agenda's constant need to make everything about skin color. Owens argued that this obsession with race only divides people, making real progress almost impossible. She believes that focusing on racial identity distracts from what truly matters: individual merit and achievements. While Ball seemed determined to keep the conversation race-centered, Owens stayed calm and firm, refusing to be pulled into that narrative. Instead, she emphasized that society should be looking at people for who they are and what they contribute, not the color of their skin. By keeping her cool, Owens showed that she's more interested in meaningful change than in pandering to the woke culture's fixation on identity politics.
Because you speak about black issues.
No, but why would you ask me? But let's get to really the nucleus of this. Why did you ask me that question today?
Because I'm
why did you feel that I needed to be
perspective.
Concerned about that?
Because you're bringing a whole group of young African American leaders to the White House.
Okay, so this is something that I talk about often, is that in many ways what liberals don't realize that you put on that, the racism and the conversations that we have.
So you're saying I'm a racist?
You haven't let me finish my statement. You keep cutting me off.
Go ahead.
Okay? The emphasis that you place is always on having a discussion about race, okay? You guys are insistent on having a conversation about race and telling us that we should see, and implying that we should see race everywhere, and I don't agree with that.
Crystal Ball zeroed in on one of Owens' tweets, where Owens labeled white liberals as racists. It was a direct question, clearly meant to put Owens on the spot, but she didn't flinch. Owens took the opportunity to break down what she sees as a hidden bias within the Democratic Party, which she claims is all about controlling minorities rather than truly empowering them. She explained that while liberals talk about supporting minority communities, they often do so in a way that's more patronizing than helpful.
If you don't look at me according to the color of my skin, you would simply ask me how I thought that Trump was doing as a president. But instead, you try to drum up a conversation that's surrounded by race by asking me, are there enough black people in the White House?
You're bringing a whole group of young black leaders to the White House.
You see color, I don't.
That's something that's important to you.
But why are you talking about?
But then why make it that you're going to bring young black leaders to the White House? I mean, this is sort of absurd.
Because the media, as in the whole.
This is absurd. You're bringing this group to the White House.
It's not absurd. I'm making perfect sense. You're just not following the logic.
I just want to be clear. Yeah.
According to Owens, they frame their actions as helping, but in reality they're just reinforcing stereotypes and keeping people dependent on their policies. This, she argued, is the real racism, assuming that minorities can't succeed without liberal intervention. For Owens, it's clear that the Democratic Party's approach is less about genuine support and more about maintaining power by keeping minorities feeling helpless. This exchange highlighted her belief that the woke agenda isn't about equality, it's about control under the guise of support.
I have questions for you as well, but we actually have to get out of the segment now.
Do you think that language is helpful, though? I mean, just in terms of the national conversation.
Well, I could ask you, do you think it's helpful to ask me, just because I'm a black woman, if I'm comfortable with the amount of color that's on the administration? Do you think that that's helpful?
I think it's helpful and interesting to know your perspective.
It's not. It's you just trying to create an undertone that Donald Trump is racist, and it's wrong.
Yeah. Okay.
Listen, but Candace, listen.
Listen, no.
I just want to say.
You're looking at me on the basis of my skin color and making a bunch of, and making a bunch of deductions. I did not. You said that, and we can run the tape back.
I want to say,
said that.
In the end, Candace Owens dominated the debate, keeping her composure while Ball struggled to keep up. Owens didn't just defend her views, she turned the conversation around, exposing what she sees as the contradictions and empty promises of woke ideology. Through each pointed response, Owens highlighted the pitfalls of reducing issues to identity politics and showed why she believes substance matters over superficial labels. This interview was a reminder of the importance of questioning mainstream narratives and being open to perspectives that challenge the status quo, something Owens clearly delivered. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.